What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
See dead people.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie.
And Nikisha.
Where we share our love for spooky things and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, guys.
Welcome.
To our rewatch. And if you didn't catch that, stop and go listen to our other previous podcasts about the movie Scream, because we are in our Scream rewatch, getting ready for Scream 5 that is coming out in the middle of January. And so we are at just better times 3. We're talking about the 2000 American meta slasher film, according to Wikipedia is what it calls that, Scream 3.
Hi, excuse me, I am Gail Weathers, and I'm here researching with the police. This photo was taken at the studio. Her name is Maureen Prescott. Back then it was probably Roberts. Hey, are you...
No.
But you look just...
Like her? I've been hearing it all my life.
It's uncanny.
I was up for Princess Leia. I was this close. So who gets it? The one who sleeps with George Lucas.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring up a sore subject for you.
Sure you didn't. None of them did. So how can I help you? Or do you want me to tell you who you look like?
How about some information on Maureen Roberts?
Yay!
So, the random mail noise here. For all the listeners who did listen to the Scream 2 episode, I'm pretty sure that I mentioned Scream 3 in thinking I was talking about Scream 2. So, this time we did not start Scream 4 before watching Scream 3. So I will have no confusion there because these movies are definitely fusing together a little bit at this point.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And I know we will get knee deep into this one because, yes, and when you watch Scream 4, it is definitely a separation. You will know that one. I will say that.
Mm-hmm.
But on to Scream 3. It is, of course, directed by Wes Craven. And we have a new writer here, Aaron Kruger. And it stars some of our
Freddy's brother?
Exactly. That's what I said. Well, it's spelled in a very fancy way, Ehren. I've never seen Aaron spelled
fancy.
That way. So, yes, I was going to say Freddie's sister. I don't know. But anyway, Aaron Kruger, so it's not Kevin Williamson.
Erin.
Ehren.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Aaron Kruger, guys.
Starting this hour with sharp listening skills.
Woo.
I mean,
sharp like the knives in the movie.
Whoa. So many knives and more guns. It's fun times.
Yeah.
So it stars our regular cast of characters. We have David Arquette, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, of course. But then we have some newbies. McDreamy himself, Patrick Dempsey. Scandal's own Jake, being creepier as ever, Scott Foley. Mm-hmm. We have Lance Henriksen, Matt Kiesler, Jenny McCarthy, Parker Posey, my personal favorite. Just to name a few. There was just so many people, so many familiar faces, as Scream has proven in the first couple of movies. They definitely put their mark on bringing stars of the time into their movies, which is a really fun thing to see. Especially because this one, and we'll go into it, focuses more on the movie Stab 3, which is the movie within the movie, bringing back all of these more famous folks. So, obviously, heavy spoilers. We will be talking about Scream 3 and probably some things in the first Scream and Scream 2, but nothing in Scream 4.
No.
We have established.
Nothing in Scream 4, I promise.
It doesn't even exist in my brain. I have no idea.
No.
Fantastic. So if you have not watched any of these, please go watch them. Or if you just want to take a listen to us talk about the things, just listen to us talk about the things. And are there any trigger warnings, Jamie, that you want to bring up?
Definitely more stabs, a lot of stabbery that is occurring in this film. There are also references to assault, sexual assault. But I think that is all, just more stabbing.
Yeah. What did you say? Stabberation?
Stabbery.
Stabbery.
Yeah.
And that just reminds me of like hateration, holleration in this dancery. So stabbery and this movery. I don't know.
There's just a lot of general stabbery that has been taking place in this film.
Fantastic. Well, before we get into it, there's so many new things coming out. And you guys mentioned to me earlier before we got on here that you watched a new trailer for a movie. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, we watched the trailer for the new Netflix horror TV show, Archive 81. It seems very immersive in the way of like the VHS movies, but with a little bit more continuity and storytelling. Again, we just saw the trailer. I think James Wan is producing it.
Oh, nice.
And I'm looking forward to it. I think I have to do more research. I think that it's based on a podcast, like a podcast like does short stories and stuff like that. So they like turned it into something a little bit more like cohesive. I don't really know. So I might be giving out incorrect information, but the trailer was really good. Spooky dooky stuff.
Spooky dooky.
Yeah, spooky, very dooky.
When you guys were talking about it, that it was a TV show. I just thought it was a movie. So that's exciting. Well, in the trailer watching, I was flipping through YouTube at 2 a.m. as one normally does, and found that there was a new Insidious that is supposed to be coming out. And at first I thought it was probably one of those like fan trailers, people just like make up things, but it was like new footage I've never seen in any of the Insidious. So I was like, this has to be real. So there's a new Insidious trailer that is going to come out. It's like House of Demons, something about a bunch of demons being around. So
interesting.
Same folks from the previous Insidious movies. So it should be a bloody good old time, that one. So hopefully when it gets to being released, we will cover it on the podcast.
Isn't Patrick Wilson directing this one?
Yes, you are correct. He's in it and he's directing it. Yes.
Oh.
I haven't watched those movies in a long time. I've only seen the first one. I've never seen anything past that one. And the first one is a perfect horror movie to me.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's
and
so
I think because there's 3 of them?
Or are there 4?
I have no idea.
There's the key one.
Right. I keep remembering like skeleton key, but not skeleton key. Something about a key.
That one, I wonder if that's the 4th. Yeah, that's the 4th one. There's the first one, chapter 2, chapter 3, and the last key.
Okay. Well, then I think I probably saw the first 3 and half of the last key. I don't think I got through all the keys.
Oh, the 3rd one was directed by Lee Winnell, who did the Saw.
Oh, nice.
The writer for Saw. That was his directorial debut.
Oh, and he did Invisible Man, right?
Yes.
Nice.
After chapter 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fun times. Just triple threats. Because he was acting in, that's the guy who was also acting in Saw?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was the photographer, the click, click. That was me taking pictures for those listening.
Click, click. Yes, exactly. Fantastic. Well, yeah, lots of good things to come, but let's get into Scream 3. Wow, I was about to say Saw 3. Okay.
It's also stabby.
So much stabbery in this movie.
Stabbery.
So, stabbery. I think we need to do a 2-minute plot summary of it, and I guess I am the one on the chopping block. Because
I think you are on the chopping block.
One.
Be careful!
I'll be right back.
What's the plot?
All right, I got you. Let me know when you're ready.
Oh my gosh. This is going to be awful, guys. And I just watched it today. Okay.
It's going to be great. You're going to be great.
3, 2, 1, go.
So we open with Cotton Weary on the phone. Apparently he's famous now and he has his own TV show and he's screaming because he doesn't have a good part in the cameo of Stab 3. Cut to, he gets a phone call from the killer who is in his home and he's going to kill his girlfriend. Cotton is on the way home. He's in the car when he gets this phone call. And so he tries to go home and rescue his girlfriend, but to no avail. She dies, he dies, and then we're back in it, guys. Back in the Scream game. But we're focused mostly on Stab 3 that is happening in LA. They find out about Cotton Weary's death. And so, of course, Gail, who was in LA, is trying to work with the detectives to try to figure out what happened. Surprisingly, Dewey is there, who's dating one of the actresses from Stab 3. And this was really mostly like a story about Gail and Dewey, which is really weird. Finally, we have Sidney, who is off into the abyss alone in isolation, but then she finds out about the murders. And so now everyone is in LA trying to figure out who's killing people. Then the killer starts killing folks on the set of Stab, and they're trying to figure out what's happening. Sidney comes out of hiding. Everything centers around Sidney's mom. There's pictures of her roaming around everywhere. And so we get a random video from Randy, from his sister, that says, if this is a trilogy, then there's going to be some random exposition and things that you thought were the thing are not going to be the thing anymore. So they all end up in this random mansion from the director and find out that the killer is actually Sidney's half-brother, who Sidney's mom abandoned. And so he wants to get revenge and kill everyone because his mother abandoned him. And that's like the premise of everything. But to no avail, he gets killed by Sidney. And that's it. Everyone lives happily ever after.
Yay!
Yay!
That's good.
Good job. Good job.
And that's the plot.
Oh, goodness. Okay, I have a confession to make. Watching this, I realized this is the first time I have seen Scream 3.
Okay.
Really?
So same with us. I have a question for you. We had never seen this before. I have a question for you because, and Jamie, I want you to share our answer for this. Did you predict the killer correctly?
I didn't, and I'm mad that I did not. I knew that it had to deal with Maureen Prescott's baby. I'm like, okay, one of these kids is like her child, and they're trying to get revenge. But going through it, and they kept referencing like, this is a trilogy, so there's probably going to be even more than one killer. So I'm thinking, oh, well, then there's probably 3 killers. So then let me figure out like which one it is. Because there was something that like Randy said, and he was like, it's going to be unconventional and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, oh, maybe there's 3 killers. So I was thinking that it was Patrick Dempsey was the muscle and had some random reason for it. I thought it was the girl who played Sidney, even though some moments they were just trying to make it seem like she was. But I was like, well, no, she probably could be like the daughter. And, you know, she won the contest, quote unquote, to be Sidney. So I was like, okay, well, I think she might have just, you know, mustered her way in there. And then I was trying to figure out who like the third one would be. I was like, well, Parker Posey could just be a random, like, you know, Shaggy moment just cause. But yeah, I was just like, this seems so random that it's the actual director of the movie. And it was just disappointing. in my opinion. But anyway, what did y'all think?
Yeah, it wasn't good. And we also incorrectly guessed. We also thought that it was, so we thought that there was 2 killers to kind of continue with the trend of at least having 2. Yeah. We thought that we guessed the same thing about like, it has something to do with the kid. It's probably Sidney's like half sibling. We thought that McDreamy, whatever his name is, Patrick Dempsey. We thought that he was the half brother because he was being real sketch.
Yeah.
And then we thought that there would have to be another killer to be like the non-motive, like lack of motive, very poor motive killer. And we thought that was Parker Posey, who was like taking the role very seriously and, you know, was potentially killing people in order to like investigate the murders or whatever. Obviously we were wrong. And yeah, I don't know. It was like really corny. Like now we're just getting like silly. There's too much doofying up that's happening in the whole thing. It's just like there were moments where Brian like straight up just like laughed out loud, and I was like, I don't know if that was like, is it like how funny is this movie supposed to be, or is it just like so silly?
It was so over the top melodramatic. It was so silly. I'm almost positive Dewey's limp and like bum arm was on the wrong side of his body from the second one.
Oh no!
I'm like, the fax machine was hilarious.
Oh my god!
The gas explosion of the house felt so out of character for a Scream movie.
Yes.
All like Randy's sister just randomly being on set
Showing
when they
up.
needed more information was wacky. Listen, my favorite part of the movie is the weird Carrie Fisher cameo, but it's just so weird and out of place.
Absolutely.
I will say that this has the scariest moment in all three of the movies so far.
And what is that?
That is Sidney having an absolute complete breakdown, like in the fake Woodsboro and crying out for Dewey, and like she's reliving her trauma in real time, and she's like sobbing in the house. Well, I thought that was incredibly effective, especially because we've just watched the other two movies, and she's like having this total complete and utter breakdown, and then you have like the trauma from her mom also filling into that. I think that was outstanding acting from Neve Campbell, or as my British teacher back when I was studying in London would say,
is it Neve?
Neve Campbell would yell at us for saying Neve. Yeah, and I also I think that Neve Campbell's or Sidney's journey in this one is awesome in terms of what we've seen before, including it would make sense that she was a woman's crisis counselor hiding away and like not and like that like deep-seated fear of like being on the phone, but also helping other women, and all of that was like really great. She also does have a picture of the play that she was in on her house, a poster for the play. Yeah. I just thought that made sense, and then her just wanting to like. She's still a courageous person, so her like going to like help and find these things, but also like being very affected by all that stuff. And she was also, Jamie pointed this out, so I'm giving this to Jamie. She was also wearing the necklace the boyfriend gave her in the second one.
Yep, I did see that.
That was weird.
I just think that everything in there was really well executed for a Scream movie. That stuff, but like the one thing that I forgot was in this movie, even though I've never seen it before, that I forgot was in this movie, are the iconic Courtney Cox bangs.
Can I say I put that in my notes? These bangs they're killing me. They're killing me more than Ghostface is killing all of the people in the movie. And I mean, yes, they're iconic. Will she bring them back for Scream 5? We'll wait and see, but I feel like there should be at least one moment of her in those god awful bangs. Hate it. Yeah, just
so short.
Just so short and just like straggly. Like I can't. Now that we're just here talking about the things, I mean, if you can give me just any more generalized things that turned you off of the movie or things that you particularly enjoyed, I will say for myself, in watching this, and you guys alluded to kind of to this idea that it felt like I was watching actual like a scary movie, like the Wayans movies of this.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where in the second one, I could let it go because it was still making fun of itself and it didn't take itself too seriously. In this one, it felt like they were trying to take themselves seriously, but within the context of all the meta stuff, it just fell flat because that kind of overpowered, like the corniness and everything overpowered what they were trying to do. Like if you just want to go full scary movie, like go full scary movie.
Yeah.
But if you want to be serious, like be serious. I mean, that would be a turn away from the franchise. But if you want to be serious, like then completely be serious. But there were moments like when they were in the mansion and then like Ghostface like comes out and randomly punches like a guy from the side. Like I laughed hysterically because that is something that happened in like scary movies.
When he hits
It's just
Patrick
so random.
Warburton with a frying pan.
Oh yeah, that was what made you laugh. That's what it was.
That
Also-
was just so much.
Also, the thing that really got me in a bad way was when they asked Dewey if Sidney's number was in his memory, and he was like, I think I remember it." And it's like, "No, you idiot, in your phone memory."
Phone memory.
Like, I can't. He must have watched Scary Movie to see how Doofy acts, and then brought it to this. Awful, just like, and he's the first build on this. I can't like it's him, Courtney Cox, and then Nev Campbell. I think he's definitely first. That's absolutely wild.
And just like and then the addedness of, I mean, one of the campy like crazy things that I did enjoy, and she is my MVP is Parker Posey. She, all of her scenes in comedy, like that seemed within the realm of Scream for me.
Yeah.
And in the world that it was supposed to be. But but yeah, like you said, Brian, having Dewey kind of be even more doofy than normal, like not even realistically, it was just like, what am I watching? And then also the turn from like the story of Sidney, like she is in it but not in it. Like it really felt like it was, like I said, more of like a Gail and Dewey story, which was like, how did we feel about that? Did you feel like that was that way?
I mean, they are like, they have definitely, I think in the second one, like kind of take on a primary role too, their relationship. So it didn't throw me off. Like I think in the first one, it's like predominantly Sidney and like we're seeing it from her perspective. But I think also it's evolved because it's not just about her surviving this trauma, but like there's other people in the fold too. And they've taken on, more space. Like they're taking up more space in these last two films because like they are a part of it. They're a part of the story. Gail is part of the Stab movies. Like she's integral to the story.
Yeah.
David Arquette, I can take or leave, but like, at least like it feels, and if anything, Gail feels like more of a foil to Sidney because of like the role that like she's always getting punched in the face. But like she's always there to kind of like poke at all of the trauma and experiences that Sidney has experienced. So like them kind of being opposing against each other and like continuing the story makes sense. Maybe the Doofy thing is like the thing that makes the least amount of sense. He's just totally useless. I laughed whenever he fell down the stairs. I'm just like over him. I hope this is mean, but I hope he dies in Scream 5.
Well, when Randy was talking about, any of the leads could die now, like, no holds barred, everything can happen. I was like, okay, well, it's probably gonna be either Gail or Dewey is gonna be the one to bite the dust.
Yeah.
Positive about this movie, I think that Randy's tape is excellent in terms of like telling us what happens at the third movie of a trilogy. I think all those things are like that bullet point checklist is excellent. I think that what this movie is missing is a Randy in terms of like being us talking about what happens in the third movie, because in this one, it's more about like mirroring what happens in Stab 3. And Randy's the only one that recontextualizes everything in terms of that. And then at the end, we find out that retconning the fact that this half brother got to Billy first and basically showed him the movies, riling him up to get him to do those things. So they retconned it a little bit. I mean, a lot. But to me, Randy really focused everything on how this is going to change. And that's when the movie got more interesting to me, because I agree with you. I think that it's a weird combination where I wasn't surprised that the two of them took more of a central role, Dewey and Gail. But I was surprised at how much Sidney was actually left out of this movie, even though her scenes were, to me, more powerful than any of the other scenes in the movie. And I was, so there's, that's kind of how I felt about that.
Yeah. Well, I will say, Jamie, I feel like you got what you wanted when we talked about Scream 2 and how Sidney would actually react to all of that trauma and what people were saying about her. Now we see her in isolation after the events have happened now twice in her life. In this moment, does that seem more believable? Were you happy with that outcome of Sidney?
Yes, very much so. Like this makes way more sense. Like I didn't get the acting thing at all. It just like felt totally disconnected. But like like going into this movie, she's had these like two incredibly traumatic, I mean 3 if you count like the actual murder of her mom, incredibly traumatic experiences. Why wouldn't she, like, she's very well equipped to empathize and connect and support with other people going through and dealing with traumas. And I think that there's something to like empowering herself to get over, like to work through her fear of like answering phones, right? Like if the phone call element is like such a core piece to the trauma, like how do you like take back control over your life by like, you know, actively working using a platform that has otherwise brought you trauma. So I think that's like a really clever thing that they throw in here. But I definitely feel like, of course, like she's trusted people so many times. And like at the core, like she thought that she knew her mom. She clearly didn't. And like how much that impacts her ability to trust people. Like if you can't trust your mom, like who can you trust kind of idea. Absolutely. And so like it makes sense that she would go off the grid and like just totally remove herself from society and like protect herself in that way.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's get into it then. Talking about crisis counseling, because I mean, I guess after, you know, almost getting stabbed in the theater, that's when you decide to change your major. You're not going to be a theater major anymore. And you're going to go into crisis counseling. So I want to ask Jamie, because I am not familiar with crisis counseling. What is it, first off? And does this movie do a good job of depicting what a crisis counselor actually does?
So crisis counseling is like essentially for folks that are like looking for support, and are in crisis. So like an acute state of, you know, like heightened anxiety or depression, like feeling really low, potentially like at risk of self-harm and like looking for somebody to talk to. That's it at like its most basic and general, because like there's all kinds of more like specialized crisis counseling that exists. But like, you know, there's suicide hotlines, there's a national domestic violence hotline, there's a national sexual assault hotline, there's crisis hotlines for LGBTQ specific youth, there's texting now, there's a crisis text line that for people who don't want to talk on the phone, they can just do texting. So like it really runs the gamut of, you know, depending on what type of like crisis that you're in, that you can find specialized support to like walk you through the process of what you're going through, to provide validation and empathy from somebody that you like don't have to have a connection to, which for some people when they're in crisis, like they might feel like they're burdening their friends and family. So having this other resource, like a third party who has no connection to you, can be a great resource. In terms of like the type of like crisis counseling that Neve was doing, I'm not totally sure what she was doing. It just seemed very general and just like people that were like, I'm in danger and I need help kind of thing. And so I'm not sure if there was like anything specific that, you know, she was supposed to be addressing, but but folks who do crisis counseling do get training for it. So, and you don't have to be a mental health professional to be a crisis counselor.
Okay.
So, you know, PSA, the hotlines can probably use a lot more support. But you can get just general training on like how to support somebody, how to be like open and empathetic, non-judgmental, supportive, like that. Those are the approaches. You know, how to de-escalate someone if someone's like calling and just like very heightened and overwhelmed and feeling kind of all over the place. What type of demeanor do you want to present with to like help bring someone down and like help calm them down? And so like strategies on like how to talk to people and you know, help them feel more comfortable. So that's like the purpose of it essentially.
Yeah.
Do I think she was doing it? Maybe, kind of, sort of, a bit.
Yeah.
She was just there listening, which I think is part of it too.
No, absolutely. Now, with the trauma that she has gone through, like, do you think that she makes a good candidate to be a crisis counselor?
So I want to say yes. I'm trying to think about it as realistic as possible, not just like her and this movie. But like, yeah, I think that there's, I think that you do not have to go through a traumatic experience to be able to provide support to somebody who's experienced a trauma. But I also know that like, you know, when you're looking for support, you want to know that someone understands you and like hears you and empathizes. And empathy is like the key. And I say that word a lot, but like empathy is different from sympathy. It's like really about putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And a lot of times folks looking for support, whether it's a therapist or a crisis counselor, something more like temporary and acute, they're looking for someone who like understands them. And oftentimes they might want somebody who has had those lived experiences, who knows exactly what it's like to go through this, because that's the connection that they feel is like, oh, you've been in this situation. You get me. You understand exactly what I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
And like, that's what helps them feel heard and validated. And like, and you know, that can help with building that rapport and that relationship. And I think that's like a very normal thing to want somebody. I mean, I think it happens all the time. Like if you're seeking a therapist, you want somebody who has had similar experiences, who shares similar identities to you, because you want to know that that person's going to get you in order to provide you with that support. So I think that there are benefits to like somebody else having that perspective and those experiences to provide that specialized support. But I don't think it's necessary like across the board. Like I haven't lived every life, and I like to hope to think that I'm doing a good job at my job. But like, I think that there's like, you know, and ultimately I think what's really important is like the person that's providing the support, like have they gotten the support that they need in order to effectively support other people? Or are they like being re-traumatized by hearing other people's trauma?
Yeah, exactly.
Are they making it about themselves? Like, you know, not all, I will say not all therapists are good therapists. A lot of them struggle with, you know, like compartmentalizing their own stuff and like can make it about them. That's not, you know, what people are typically looking for when they're looking for a therapist. And so I think like those are the potential barriers or challenges that somebody who has been through very like specific types of trauma, who then like puts themselves in a position to hear other people's trauma day in and day out, that they might struggle with their own issues if not addressed and like getting their own support.
That is a lot, which is why I feel like the more, I mean, like you said, PSA, I mean, we all need the help. But even with not having so many people specialized in this stuff, you can still come across people who can't be that helpful to you in that. And that's also kind of scary in itself. But just speaking on Sidney's trauma specifically, because as you mentioned, it would be nice to know the person that you're talking to went through something similar and overcame it, so that, you know, they can have a full view of your issue when you're talking to them. But we get some different kind of like triggers and such in this movie with Sidney in relation to her mom. So we're seeing like all of these hallucinations and she's hearing voices in her head on top of that fancy ass voice machine that just happens to capture everybody's voice. Like that's like 2050 type technology. Like what is that? But anyway, I digress. That the kind of trauma that Sidney has had with everything that we know, at least from these movies, can that cause those kinds of voices in your head and hallucinations? And I think there was a podcast or that we had spoke about like traumas and hallucinations. But do you think that this is believable, is warranted, like to have these voices in your head and hallucinations and it's kind of weird because we don't know everything about her mom until the end, but we're seeing more of her in this movie than we did in the first two. So it's just like, why is all this stuff coming up right now when she doesn't even know everything? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer because like I myself was confused about like what was real and what was not real. Like I think there were moments. So something that I think was real and I think definitely happens is nightmares. So like there's a part where she's asleep, but we don't know that until she wakes up from her nightmare. But she's like looking out the window and like her mom is there. And then I think the killer shows up at the end and then she like wakes up in a tizzy. Nightmares are like absolutely a common symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder. So like it's very realistic that after all of these traumas that Sidney has experienced, that she would be like having difficulty sleeping, having these nightmares, like any kind of nightmare. It could be the exact situation that happened, or it could be like anything adjacent, but like, you know, those like memories resurfacing in that way. Absolutely. The experiences when she's awake. So like I said, I don't know if that was real or not, in that I feel like that was the killer, who we now know to be her half brother. Because I think he was like under the bloody bed sheet when she was in the set that was her house and hearing her mom's voice. And I think I don't think that was a hallucination. I think that was happening, but not actually her mom, but the killer. And so like, I'm trying to think of other times where she was hearing the voice and the killer wasn't wearing a big bloody bed sheet somewhere nearby. Because I think he was using that voice modulator thing and like nearby. But then it's like, how did he get Sidney's mom's voice when he had no connection? Like nothing makes sense. Anyway,
exactly.
So I'm trying to think if there were, and tell me if there were, but I can't remember well, if there were other times where like she heard the voice, but then we didn't see the bloody bed sheet come out of nowhere. Cause I think that was like really happening and not just in her head. But all of that to say that, I mean, you know, nothing is impossible. Like you could certainly have experienced so many traumas that you start to have like symptoms of psychosis, which could include hallucinations. But I can't speak on like how often that is a symptom that comes up. And like, again, like her circumstances are so nuanced and specific that like maybe you have to go through these like very specific avoidance of murders to have this happen. I don't know. But I think it's like a mixed bag of like what things are happening to her that are like real symptoms of PTSD versus like, is this actually happening? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, totally. There's just so many other things interwoven, and it's just like melodramatic, as Brian was saying, just like compounded trauma. And for what? Like half the time now it's not even making sense. Like we don't even have a through line of what's happening. You know, it's just like, how can we just have a surprise killer at the end? What can we do to get to that point? You know? Last question about Sidney in particular. So there was a comment, and now I can't even remember if this was the bloody sheet or in the dream, but her mom is yelling like, "You're poisoned, just like me," that kind of thing. So now you're compounding the trauma of believing that you're taking after your parents, like toxic behavior. Is that a thing? Is that preventable? I know we talked about like Billy's mom, and we were talking about like personality disorders or mental illnesses being hereditary and things, but it's just like, I guess my question is, how do you cope with trying to avoid like a parent's toxic nature? Because we literally have like Billy and his mom, but then like Sidney and her mom is the complete opposite,
I mean, I think that this is a trend that's continued throughout all three movies so far, because in the first one, she says like she's worried that she's going to end up just like her mom.
Yeah.
And then in this one, we obviously get like way more of this backstory. But I mean, for her specifically first, like, I don't think that there's anything that she's doing that, I mean, again, her mom is like this weird, mysterious figure that like we're getting like info dumps that don't really make sense. But like, I don't get the sense that Sidney is like her mom, right? Because she doesn't have like this secret life that nobody knows about, and doesn't seem to be like having all of these relations with people. Like she's had 2 like steady monogamous relationships, and neither of them worked out, unfortunately. But like those are the only relationships that we've seen of Sidney. Otherwise, she's like isolating herself and very closed off. So like I don't see her. I'm getting to this point where I'm like, what traits are you talking about that you are concerned about taking on? Because I don't see that in her. I feel like she's like, I mean, she's very much the scream queen of like fiercely independent and like wants to do it on her own and like wants to resolve things. Like, I think she's getting more brave and independent as the movies continue, and like knowing what she's capable of, having been like, she's really resilient. And I don't think that she's like her mom. But like in terms of like more generally, I mean, like to the degree that like, yes, we are raised by parental figures, guardians, and, they can influence us, but we are also like, we are not an extension of our parents. We are our own independent people who have our own lived experiences. We might like get values from our parents, but then like those values are tested for ourselves individually. And like, we form our own independent opinions and beliefs, and like, that is how we move through the world. And so like, I think that we can, have these experiences in childhood that like might kind of set us up for certain lifestyles, but then like, then we are on our own and we are figuring it out. And like, we don't necessarily have to be like a carbon copy of our parents.
Right. And just going back to her mom, because it's also not like her mom was just doing whatever. This movie suggests that there was a specific event that happened that kind of led her down that path. How do you feel about it?
I feel problematic. Like, are they I'm also confused of like, are they alluding to the fact that she was like sexually assaulted that then led her to like a life of promiscuity?
That's what
like,
it
that's
seems like.
Gross.
I have a question.
Yeah, question from Brian.
So this actually leads me to something that I want to do, which is like a fast-paced answer section. So I have questions for you, and I want to get both of your answers, just like what you think about this movie.
Okay.
And it actually starts with what you're talking about.
Okay.
So my first question is, did Sidney's mom get sexually assaulted at the party, and that's when she got pregnant?
Yes.
Okay. So we think that at that party, that's part of the reason why she dismisses the son, because it does remind her and bring her up really traumatic things that happened to her.
I think so. I'm under the impression that he's like a product of rape, essentially.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
The rest are less serious. One.
Is this movie good? Yes or no?
Does the opening scene of this movie set the scene for this movie like we've discussed the first two movies really do?
No.
No.
Not in my opinion. Mm-mm.
No. It like didn't really make any sense.
It was so random. And at first I was waiting, just speak on that quickly. I was just waiting for them to cut to, oh, this is part of the actual movie franchise. Like, this is, just a scene in the movie. And it's like, oh, this isn't. This is like a part of like the quote unquote real life of Scream. This is not good.
Sure. So on that, did you like the voice changer bit?
I honestly just kept thinking about how it worked and that it wasn't realistic. And so then not that any of this is, realistic.
No, it's all very real.
But that component of it was just kind of a little too far. It's like, yay, moving with the technology, okay, but how did you get, like Jamie said, how did you get Maureen's voice? That makes no sense. Like other people's, okay, maybe, but I didn't like the voice.
The only thing I can think of is that he pulled her voice from those videos that he made.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was just like creeping from the shadows, filming her like kissing men in front of doors.
Yeah, you can't pull her voice from.
Exactly.
Wait, Jamie, did you like the voice changer?
I liked it, but I also was just like, I don't understand how this works. But I was like, oh, that's cool.
Sure. Okay, next. Were you disappointed that it was only one killer?
Yes.
Were you disappointed with who it was in the reveal?
Yes. I liked our theories way more than this because it just felt like lame. It was lame.
Absolutely.
It was a letdown.
Because then, I didn't like either. Because we had, like we said, we had the cop who we guessed was the half brother, and then we had Parker Posey because she's just so wacky that she was killing for like to just like get inside the Woodsboro murders, and then
plus, why would they change the formula? They have a formula. Why does it have to be one killer now?
It's the third movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. That was disappointing. Okay. Another question is, were you frustrated or are you frustrated that Dewey and Gail seem to start from the same annoying place every single movie, and they basically have the same arc throughout it, where like they're like bickering and then they realize that they really like each other. At the end, they either sleep together or get engaged or just be mutually nice to each other. Like, what thoughts on that?
I think that's a leading question, but yes.
Well, I mean, I didn't think about that aspect of it too much, but even you saying it just annoyed me. So, yeah.
Didn't mean for it to be leading, but it really very much turned me.
You're like, do you think that their annoying storyline was annoying?
And then my last question, and this is probably the biggest open-ended question of this whole movie. Why was the cop at the house at the end, and is Sidney dating the cop?
Who knows? I guess maybe she's dating the cop. Maybe he's her new security now. I don't know. That was really random and weird because he was such a creeper the whole time.
Well, okay. Actually, now that I'm thinking more on this, I think maybe they are dating. And here's why. Because he makes all of those weird comments about like the scariest things that he's like how the job has really messed him up. The scariest movie that he's seen is Living His Own Life, which makes no freaking sense.
That line was so good.
And then she whispers, mine too. But like, I do think that like, let's go back to trauma bonding, Nikisha.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes. I think that is the thing that brought them together is like, they've both been through some shit. And like, that is something, I mean, I think that's it's something that isolates them from others, but I think it's something that brings them two specifically together because they both know what it's like. It's like the same stuff that I was talking about before about like really understanding what that's like. And like if he's dating someone outside of that life, you know, how much harder is it going to be for like someone to understand that stuff that he's going through? But Sidney gets it. She's lived it.
Yeah.
So I think yes.
And then Jamie, I have a question for you.
Hot date.
What would murdering your half brother do to your psyche?
Yes.
I mean, she's already killed before. And
people that she's been closer to.
Yeah, like she like literally just found out that she's related to him and like really had no relationship to him. Like at least with Timothy, she like knew him from classes and like he was friends with her friends. Like she didn't know this guy from a doorknob. Like they had no relationship. And then he was like, your mom is my mom. I'm killer.
Your
now
mom
I'll kill you.
is my mom. My mom is your mom.
I mean, I do wonder if she's like slowly just generally desensitized because like she be murdering. Like self-defense.
Murdering.
Yeah, she be stabbing, she be murdering. But like, you know, it's going, I think regardless of like who the target is, just the fact that she's like put in these situations where the only way she survives is by like taking the life of someone else, I think is like absolutely going to get to her. I can't see, like, she's got to be even more fucked up in Scream 4. I like just watching the trailers for Scream 5, I'm just like, you seem way more well adjusted than I feel like you should be in real life.
Yes, agreed. And also speaking on the killer, if we're to assume that the half brother was a product of rape, do you sympathize, I guess, with the mom? Like, do you think that it's believable for her to have rejected him in that way?
Yes, absolutely. It's like, I mean, I think that's like a very complex situation. And like, I don't think that there is a right or wrong answer. I think like, you know, there's folks, unfortunately, who are assaulted and like, you know, they have the choice to like, if they're impregnated, like they have the choice to terminate. And some folks like don't feel comfortable terminating, but still have like a very complicated relationship with their child because of like the context around how they got pregnant. And like that, I think that's like very real and that is like the most realistic thing I think about this whole movie is the idea that like, if that's what they're implying, that she like rejects a relationship with her son because of that. I'm also curious, like, you know, is he then like, did she give him up for adoption? Like, is that the story that we're going with? And then like he, you know, does research into it and like finds like, there's something missing for me of, you know,
his journey. Like
if he had it makes me wonder if he had a really positive relationship with adoptive parents, would this all have still happened?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because like, is it just about the rejection from the bio mom, or like, did he ever have a connection with some type of like parental figure, like someone that raised him, you know, like, and it's not necessarily the same by any means, but like how much is just that like familial connection that he might have had? Like if they're saying that he didn't have that, then I'm sure that rejection hurts so much more because like he never had the connection and then feels abandoned by his mom. Like that makes sense. But if he had like a really positive upbringing and then was like rejected by his mom and he was like, no, I'm going to ruin your life. I'm just like, so what?
I just did the math. He turns 30 in this movie. So that means if this is 2000, he would have been born in 1970. And I think that fits the profile for for those like couple of years that she was in LA. I don't remember what the time frame was that she was in there, but that seems about right.
My other thought about that was like she seemingly went to LA randomly and then like lived this life and then like came back. I think what would actually have made more sense is if she left because of an assault. Like she left her hometown because of an assault and got impregnated and then like moved across the country to like to deal with that and then comes back and like, you know,
interesting.
Like that, like compartmentalizes that and like moves on with her life. I feel like it makes less sense that she just like was like, I'm going to be an actress and then like goes to LA and then experiences this like really traumatic event and like deals with it and then goes back. I don't know. It was just
to be fair, that's exactly what Sidney did. She like out of nowhere wanted to be an actress and then had to deal with traumatic events. And then
so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she is exactly like her mom.
Whoa.
Oh my God, Brian.
Whoa.
Wow, that's amazing.
I think we just broke this thing through.
Yeah.
We did. Wow.
Nikisha, question for you.
Yes.
If you were cast in Stab 3 and this was happening, you would call your agent immediately and be like, you're fired.
I would absolutely. I would get out of there with the quickness. I mean, because like weren't people, and I was trying to think back in Scream 2, because again, I agree with you guys. They're all kind of like melding together. Did people who were playing the roles in Stab 2, they didn't die though. Nobody died that was acting.
No. In Stab 2, they did not die. I think they just said that like they were recasting some. They gave a reason in the movie, and I don't remember. But they were recasting, or like they don't want to do the parts anymore, or something. I think they also make like a meta joke about like Hollywood in there. But they didn't die. No.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, I was gonna say like if people were like dying, you know, you think about like when people talk about the cursed sets in Hollywood and like things that happen with like Poltergeist and you know all the things. Then I would be like, absolutely not. I'm not going to do this. We're not going to be in that situation. Also, the heaviness of basically implying that all of the actresses were sleeping with the director to get the part. And I know that is a thing that we have experienced and people are in jail for those kinds of things now in the real world. But it was just so crazy how heavily they were like, everybody got.
What is this, Starry Eyes?
I know, exactly. It was really weird and crude and gross, but yeah, absolutely not.
Wait.
Even though I would love to be in a horror movie one day.
What? That's not how you're going to get there.
Right.
One last question for both of you. You would have closed the door at the end, right? Like the door's just open. You would have closed it.
Yeah, that's weird.
Like, don't even get me started on all of that. I also don't understand why people don't have guns on them at all times. At this point, like you're having to find guns in random places. Sidney should have 10 of them in her possession at all times. Like that's dumb.
Well, I think that's funny that in the Scream 5 trailer, where it's like, I'm Sidney Prescott, of course I have a gun, or something. Like I like that line.
Yeah. Or when fucking Dewey was shooting at the body and she's like, the head, shoot the head.
Oh my God. I like couldn't. I was dying. I was just too much.
My favorite part of the movie, no question,
is when he fell down the stairs.
Oh yeah, that was great. Is when Parker Posey is being attacked behind the two-way mirror or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he shoots out all the glass. And then Jamie screams at the screen, be like, don't waste your bullets, you idiot. And then in the next scene, he doesn't have any bullets left when he tries to shoot him. Yes. Oh, man. That made my viewing experience so much better.
I'm so sorry. I've become this very disruptive movie watcher at home. And I didn't realize how vocal I was when I am annoyed at these characters doing dumb things. But is that not the core of talking horror, is talking about human behavior and people making 100%. The wildest decisions that make no sense?
That makes no sense.
Wait, so then where did he get all the bullets at the end to not shoot him in the head?
The cop gave him his gun.
Oh, okay. I was like, That doesn't make sense.
But also then the phone call, like, okay, we're at the point where we have caller ID on the phones. And then when Dewey picks up the phone and it's like the killer, but he thought it was Gail. It's like, is Gail not saved in your phone?
Well, they did
so
the
that
star
when it
69.
pops
It was wild, right? Totally.
Yeah. Also, why at the end did Scott Foley just like look at his phone like a goober when Sidney star 69'd him? He was like, huh? Someone's calling me now?
Yeah.
Like, you've been doing this prank this whole time, and now you're like, oh, what's happening here? Like, he looked at his phone like he never looked at the phone before.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you doing? Although I do love him in Scandal.
Oh, he's fantastic in Scandal.
He's also great on
definitely.
Scrubs.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that he was in Scrubs.
So many things.
Final thoughts about the movie.
Can I say an interesting fact that I learned on the Wikipedia page?
Yeah.
So it says that there was an intentional increased emphasis on comedic elements in this installment, and they had reduced some of the violence and horror because this was around the time that Columbine happened.
Oh.
And there was a lot of scrutiny about violence in media, which is interesting because that's what the second one is about.
Yeah. But also this one
and
has
so
more
they
guns.
like shifted the tone. Yeah, it does. I mean, that seems like opposite. But
wow. Okay.
So that was just something interesting that I learned. But ultimately, I do not think that the avid humor worked in its favor. And this, for me, is the weakest installment of this chain.
Hands down. Ditto everything you just said.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
Well, what about you, Brian?
It had some moments. This is my least favorite of the three so far. But it did have its moments here. I actually think the most disappointing thing was Parker Posey's death in terms of like kind of being lame, and she's incredible in this movie in terms of like her being more Gail than Gail. I thought that joke went a million miles for me. Like, it was wonderful. I was disappointed in that there wasn't two killers, and quite frankly, it wasn't satisfying like the first two are. The first two are very satisfying killers in the end. This one was not satisfying at all. But I still listen. Did I have a good time watching this? Yes. I think the Sidney stuff in this is the best in all three, maybe. At least better than two.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I at least feel the like alignment between like how they're talking about her and how she is presenting herself in this one.
Absolutely.
Well, should we do Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah. Oh wait, no. The dumbest scene is when Doofy's on the phone calling her, and then he turns around like he's never acted before in his fucking life, and she's standing there, and he's like, "Oh, Sidney."
Oh, that is great. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I was like, "Wait, what?" Sidney,
Jamie,
I was just calling you on this have you seen these cellular phones?
Right. Jamie, I really think you were onto something. I think he watched Scary Movie and just became that. We're just going to go with that's what it was.
It was DooFest. This was DooFest.
It was so doofy.
Like,
this whole movie was doofy.
Like, watch out, like Firefest. This is DooFest.
Absolutely agreed. Oh my god.
All right, Rotten Tomatoes.
Tomatoes.
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
Okay.
I'm gonna guess 67.
Ooh, no. I'm gonna guess like 30.
Oh, work.
Okay, this has a 41.
Nice.
For critics' consensus.
Damn, nice.
The audience score is 37%, and the critics' consensus is, despite some surprising twists, don't know what they're talking about. I guess we none of us guessed the killer, so that's fair.
Well, there you go.
Despite some surprising twists, Scream 3 sees the franchise falling back on the same old horror formulas and cliches it once hacked and slashed with postmodern abandon.
Well, it didn't even go back. If it was back to what it was before, it would have been better.
Yeah, I know, right?
True.
Now.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Woof.
Anyway, let's do the 4 S's.
Oh God.
Yes.
Skull, scares, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horrors 4 S's.
Okay. We have the 4 S's, which are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. 1 through 10. What do you rate this for skulls? And that is human behavior and mental health.
I'm gonna give it a 2.
Hmm.
A solid 2.
Hmm.
This just didn't do anything for me. But she's a crisis counselor, so that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Jamie?
I think I'll give it a 3.5 because I do finally feel like we're getting what Sidney should have been this whole time. And like her experience with the nightmares and kind of like questioning reality a bit. But then everybody else is like just an idiot.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I'm going to give this a 5 because I really like the Sidney stuff. And I think that it was very satisfying to watch her struggle because what we know she's gone through. And I think the acting was really good. So I'm going to go with that. Scares. Was this scary? Was this not scary?
No, it was not scary. I'll give it a 1. It was a comedy, guys. What are we talking about? Horror. This was a comedy.
Yeah. I'll give it a 0.5 because there was one single jump scare that got me, and then I was really pissed at myself that it got me.
What was it? Do you remember?
I don't even remember it. Just like the killer like popped out of nowhere, and I was just like, and I was like, oh god, that was so dumb.
I'm gonna give it a 3 because I thought that Sidney scene, like her kind of hyperventilating, both of them when the person calls for the first time and it's her mom's voice, and then it turns into the scream killer. Ghostface, and then in the actual Woodsboro, I actually saw how frightened she was, and like that the feeling that she had was like was overwhelming, and that was scary, not like jump scare stuff scary. Shakes, will you remember this movie? Is this a forgotten one?
I'm giving it a 1 again. I will only remember this because of Parker Posey.
1 Parker Posey bangs.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a 1 for me. I mean, I already think I'm looking forward to 4. I know a lot of people like 4. All right. Suggestions. What suggestions do you have?
Watch any of the fucking scary movies, guys, instead of this one. So watch Scream 1, Scream 2, and then watch Scary Movie. You won't miss a thing.
All right.
I once again have nothing. I have not seen Urban Legends Bloody Mary, but there is a 3rd installment. So, and apparently Kate Mara is in it. So that's fun.
Nice.
Cool. I have 2, but I don't know which one to pick. So you can pick for me. The first one is I wanted to pick. So one is Paranormal 3, Paranormal Activity 3, like an actually a good 3rd sequel of something. That's my first one. Or I was thinking Army of Darkness because that is a campy 3rd movie that is fun and works.
I second that. I mean, it's not a slasher, but like it's great campy horror that is very entertaining.
Yeah.
And like has like good spooks in it. I love that movie.
Cool. I'll go with Army of Darkness. Cool. Awesome.
Fantastic. That's
Thank
the
you,
signal
Count.
that we have right.
The signal.
That's the signal that we have finished up our time with Scream 3. Oh, what a time we had.
Scream 3,
OMG, exactly. You can follow us on the Instagram and the Twitters and the TikToks at Talk Horror Pod, POD. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
Sure, you can listen to us wherever you get podcasts, things like Stitcher, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Please rate and review us there. 5 stars, please.
And thank you.
As one horror podcast and a bloody river of other horror podcasts, it really does help when you rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps people find us better. So we would really appreciate it if you took a stab at it.
I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, well, that is the end for us. Anybody have a quote? I'm just super excited for y'all to watch Scream 4, and I think I'm hyping it up too much, but I don't care.
No, hey, listen, it's not going to be worse than Scream 3. It's just not.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
I'm even trying to find a good quote, and they're all stinky. What's happening?
so I'll end with something. Snoochie Boochies. I totally forgot Jay and Silent Bob were in
my
this.
God. Yes. Yeah.
I'm confused. What?
Wait, Jay and Silent Bob are in this movie? Like Kevin Smith and
yes.
Jason Mewes?
Yes.
Yes.
They did make an appearance. What was the phrase you said?
Snoochie Boochies.
Yeah, that's a good quote to
that
end.
That is a good quote.
I
Snoochie Boochies to all.
That's when I knew this movie was too much. And that was like right at the beginning. Nuts.
Fantastic, guys. Snoochie Boochies to you all, and to all a good night.